Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Hope you guys are all having a wonderful day and had a great weekend. Let's talk about and dive into what we can expect in the markets this week and currently what's happening with Palantir. Right now, between the bulls and the bears, it's sitting and teetering right at this $100 support level. This is also a psychological support level just because it's at that $100 threshold. But what we're seeing right now in the overnight hours on Robinhood is actually a little bit of buying pressure. This comes on top of the events that happened last week, not just with Palantir, but the broader market. And we have a big week ahead of us, especially with NVIDIA's earnings, which could lead to large implications on the AI industry and the market in terms of its reaction. Could be pretty volatile. So before we get too far, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. We're getting close to 24,000. Thank you guys so much. And of course, not a financial advisor, collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Now pop it up on the screen here. Palantir on Friday's market closed at 101.35, down about 4%, 5% including the after hours. Where it sits right now in the overnight hours on Robinhood is at 102.20, up about 85 cents. We can see a little bit of buying pressure here. In terms of what's going to be happening at the market open, nobody really does know what's going to happen in terms of the reaction. Remember, the broader market had a decent sell-off on Friday's close, with the NASDAQ down about 2.2% and S&P 500 down about 1.7%. With some big pieces of macroeconomic data and NVIDIA earnings too, we could probably be expecting a volatile week. One thing that I am seeing for Palantir, though, just on this individual stock, is right now there are a lot of bearish articles coming out. And typically this does happen. Remember last week, Palantir, the negative news that we saw causing this correction from Palantir to go from the 125s here at these record highs down to about $100 was the share filing of the CEO, Alex Karp, how he plans to sell shares over the next until September. And you also had the announcement of the budget cuts in terms of the Pentagon, the defense contracts, and Palantir does accumulate a decent amount of revenue from that sector. One thing that we've talked about, though, is that could actually be beneficial, and Palantir could be a winner possibly in those budget cuts, because when it comes to budget cuts, laying off workforce, some of that could possibly be replaced with AI, and Palantir has some pretty strong connection and is at the leading competitive edge in terms of offering AI products to the government. That's where it could still be a winner. One thing, though, I am seeing in the media is a lot of bearish articles that are coming out on Palantir. This typically does always happen when we do see a decent price cut, talking about fund managers sounding the alarm on Palantir stock, talking about the 10% drop right here within what we know from the Pentagon budget, talking about the earnings and how high of a valuation Palantir sits at. We know Palantir is at a very high valuation. It's been disconnected, and the analysts have typically been giving Palantir lower price targets, lower average price targets over like the last 2 years because of its valuation. And Palantir, if you've been trying to just sit out, wait for that pullback, a lot of people missed out on that opportunity. What you can see here, Wall Street right now expecting for a downside for the stock, which could obviously happen. It's not saying that's not going to happen. The analysts have an average price target of about $85 right now for Palantir. One thing that I do like in terms of what the analysts are saying and what the average price target is that even on the lower end of the spectrum and on the higher end, you're seeing the stair step type of incremental jump for Palantir's targets. You could say a year ago, the average price target would not be $85 for Palantir. So even the bears out there, people have been cautious, haven't proven wrong just in terms of what's actually happened in reality, what's came to fruition. So that's one important thing about a stock, is that even on the lower end, these people that are still bearish are still raising their price targets. So interesting to see there. But what this article just basically goes into, talking about fund managers are selling, it seems like it's an article trying to induce a lot of FUD into the market, trying to bring more emotion. I think it's important, of course, just to stay due diligent. Analysts are mixed on Palantir stock. Of course, they are going to be mixed with its current price action and with how fast it's climbed within the last, not just year, but the last 2 years. And everybody talking about here how fast 333% gain over the past year as of this writing. So we'll see what happens, what to expect in the markets. I think this is also going to be incredibly important. We're going to have PCE, that's the expenditure data, GDP revisions, consumer confidence, and housing data, earnings from NVIDIA. big key players are also going to be releasing their earnings. Now, NVIDIA's earnings, we'll be talking about just a few minutes here, scheduled to report on Wednesday, talking about the uncertainty that we're seeing right now in the market with the outlook for AI. And we also have the Federal Reserve. They're going to be scrutinizing the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, the PCE data, scheduled for release on Friday. This is going to give us information about what's happening with inflation. And right now, we're seeing concerns, especially from Wall Street, that the progress on inflation is kind of stalled. What this means is that those interest rate cuts, or the hope of what the market's been kind of pricing in, will continue to dwindle if inflation is still remaining relatively high. And that's because we've heard the Fed come out and say that they are prioritizing to get inflation within its target zone over the reduction of interest rates, and that they're in no hurry to cut those interest rates. The market has kind of adjusted to this somewhat. They just don't like hearing it from reality. What I've noticed, that's when we typically see a pullback. But the market's basically pricing in about 1 to 2 interest rate cuts for the entire year of 2025. So if we, for some reason, don't see that, if we see inflation that looks pretty bad, that's where we're going to see more volatility in terms of downward pressure within the market. We're going to get updates on the housing market. That'll probably make an impact on what's happening with mortgage rates. And of course, federal funds rate. So big numbers that are coming out. One big thing going into NVIDIA earnings. Remember, that's going to be happening on Wednesday, post-market. Earnings per share estimated is to be about 85 cents with a revenue correlated at 38.15 billion. What people are watching for in quarter four earnings is really looking at the remains, or kind of looking on the data center business from Morningstar. This article right here gives a fair value estimate of about 130, which isn't too far off from where NVIDIA currently trades right now at 134. So the fact that Morningstar, a big article and a big media outlook that a lot of people look up to in terms of what their analysts are saying, 130, like I said, not too far. So NVIDIA has been on a healthy streak right here, talking about this fast ahead of this quarterly guidance. Talking about that last quarter beat was less impressive than those of the prior quarters, if you guys remember that. And this is talking about the modest concern about a slowdown in AI spending. So they're going to be looking at data center business. Longer term data center debates persist. We've seen some geopolitical issues with NVIDIA, some uncertainty there. So in terms of that, the supply constraints are the biggest concerns for NVIDIA. We know the demand is there. However, we're going to be looking at the demand for AI spending. But in terms of the potential tariffs that we've seen with things like that, demand, and of course, competition across the board. Remember, DeepSeek came out with that big scare, and we had a big pullback in the market then. So we'll see what happens with their earnings. We'll be keeping you guys updated come Wednesday. But NVIDIA trading at a decent price right now, I would say, at the second most valued company right now in the world, right behind Apple at 3.29 trillion. Other stocks that will be keeping you guys up to date is Big Bear, which Big Bear has been experiencing a decent pullback. This is most likely due to because Big Bear has some heavy ties in terms of defense with the governmental sector, down about 10% that we saw on Friday's close, 6.79%. But we have to remember that just in the last month, Big Bear has had a large price accumulation. You can see here, just in mid-January, at the end of January, a few short weeks ago, Big Bear was only at 382, popped up to about $10. So nearly 3x right here, at least a 2x. You can see a little bit of a pullback here is not concerning, especially with a small market cap at only 1.71 billion. This stock is naturally going to be more volatile in nature just due to its market cap. We'll see if we see continued downward pressure or Big Bear does have a flip. If you guys want to see more about Big Bear, leave that down in the comments. We can do some individual videos on it. Also looking at Tempest right here, experiencing a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of buying pressure in the overnight hours right now in Robinhood, but Tempest also had a large run up over the last month. Remember when Pelosi had disclosed her filing of the calls for Tempest, that is when it launched from $31 all the way up to $91 right here. So a pullback across some of these very volatile stocks that have accumulated a lot of price and market capitalization in a short period of time. Pullback does not scare me at all, and I think is very healthy for the stocks in terms of their fundamentals and what's just happening rather than just trading off of the name. So regardless of that, what's your opinion? What do you think is going to be happening in the market here? Do you think we're going to continue to see a pullback in the broader market and in Palantir, or do you think we're going to see a reversal? Palantir has been doing a good job holding that $100 level of support. Personally, I think we could possibly see Palantir doing a very good job holding that support level. And if it falls through, that's where I'd be a little more concerned for a stronger correction, just due to the fact of the big gap that was created after the quarter four earnings from 83 up to 100. Peace out. Take care. I'll catch you guys later.